Sports note for St. Patrick's Day, Sunday, March the 17th, and it's official. Tonight we go dancing. We find out who the 68 teams are going to be in the 2024 NCAA men's and women's college basketball tournaments. We know a lot of the names are going to be there on the men's side. It's all a matter right now of who's going to get the last number one. Did North Carolina do enough? Ultimately getting upset in the ACC final by NC State to claim the final number one. Did Iowa State, with their run, do enough to actually usurp North Carolina? Because we know that pretty much you've got Houston and UConn as the other number ones. Purdue is possibly on that top line as well. But one team that's actually going dancing that is the most improbable of stories are the Long Beach State Beach. And don't let the name fool you. Long Beach State, up until just a few years ago, had three names. They used to be known for many years as the 49ers. They've kind of gone by the name the Beach since around 2019, and their baseball team has one of the best names in all of college basketball. Their baseball team is officially known as the Dirtbags, but the Beach had lost their last five in the regular season and finished at 10-10 in the Big West Conference, and 21 they were 18-14 on the season. They finished 7 games out of first place. They were in a mathematical tie with UC Riverside within the conference, but earned the 4 spot in the conference tournament. And they dispatched UC Riverside in the opening round of the conference tournament. Then they actually go on to upset number 1 UC Irvine in the semifinal, and then ultimately take down UC Davis in the final to earn their first automatic berth since 2012. Now, that wouldn't be noteworthy enough, except that back on Monday, Long Beach State fired or mutually agreed to part ways with head coach Dan Monson after the season ended. Not when the regular season ended, and not like what some teams did, like Juwan Howard getting dismissed from Michigan after their season came to an end. This wasn't like an Ohio State thing where Chris Holtman was fired back on Valentine's Day, February 14th, and was kind of shown the door, and Ohio State goes on enough of a run to where the committee is going to have to look long and hard to think, does Ohio State deserve to be in as maybe a 12 or an 11? But Long Beach State is absolutely worthy of getting there. But Monson getting fired and then being allowed to coach out the remaining Beach games, which I want to say there were 3 of them left at that point, and the conference tournament. Figure they're a middle of the pack team in the conference. They were going to go possibly win their opener and certainly get knocked out, but nobody expected this to be the kind of run that they would go on to, until you start thinking about Dan Monson's history. Now, Dan Monson started his career as a head coach at Gonzaga. He started in the 1997-1998 season. The Zags went to the NCAA tournament. The following year, that was Gonzaga's miracle run to the Elite Eight, where Gonzaga was officially put back on the map. After that season and that miracle run, naturally Monson's name gets thrown out there for the next big prospect to take over a program at a major conference. In this case, Monson went to the University of Minnesota and never translated the same level of success in his 2 years running the Zags. The Gophers only went to one NCAA tournament, were bounced in the first round that year, and then he takes over at Long Beach State, where he's been for the last 17 years. Now, in 17 years, only 2 conference tournament championships, 2 NCAA appearances. They lost that opener to Mexico back in 2012, but the idea that that his squad also won 5 regular season conference championships. His overall record within as head coach at Long Beach State. It's only 275 and 272. Certainly middle of the road. 17 years, 5 conference, regular season championships, 2 trips to the Big Dance. And there's a couple of NIT berths in there as well. I want to say maybe 3 of them. But it's his 166 and 112 record in the Big West Conference that kept Dan Monson around so long, and it was also his pedigree with where he'd been before. Now, the last 5 losses were by 8 to Hawaii, 5 to Cal State Fullerton, 21 to UC Irvine, 4 to UC Santa Barbara, and 10 to UC Davis. Now keep in mind there that the UC Irvine and UC Davis games were by double digits, and then they turn around and they squeak out 4-point wins against both of those to advance. The Beach are 79th in the country in scoring at 77.7. They're 63rd in the country in rebounding per game. They're 74th in assists. They allow 75.7 points per game. The numbers don't jump off the page. Their RPI certainly would not have gotten them in as an at-large, because in a conference like that, you're going to see only one school make it in, which is the beauty of the field of 64. And now 68 and possibly expanding to 96 in the next few years, that you have 32 conferences in Division One. Everyone belongs to a conference, yes, including Notre Dame, and half of those bids are filled by automatic qualifiers, although the committee needs to get it. As much as the committee gets right, the one thing that the committee needs to change is they need to stop putting some of the lower end teams, certainly the first 4, the lowest 4 of those automatic one bid conference schools, into the play-in games, which they like to call the opening round, but they are the play-in games. Let's be honest here, on Tuesday and Wednesday leading into the tournament. That's not the tournament. The tournament starts on the Thursday after St. Patrick's Day every year. The third Thursday of the full weeks of March every calendar year. And it's the best 3 weeks in all of sports, because whether you're a college basketball fan or you're not, or you're a casual fan, everybody watches March Madness. Everyone is going to find a way to have as many of these games on and be up way too late from noon until midnight coming up Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Next week, you're going to actually be down to the Sweet 16, so you're going to have games going on starting right about the time you get home from work, or even lunchtime next weekend. And then, of course, the Final Four and the National Championship. Although with my cable package, I don't get True TV, so I'm hopeful that they don't take one of the teams that I would really like to see, like a Marquette, and put them on a channel that I can't watch. But I do get all the other ones. But we're gonna be able to see a lot of great players, a lot of close games. The 49ers, as some refer to them, but the Beach, are projected by both ESPN and CBS to be a 15 seed when the official field is announced later tonight. That's actually going to put them against Arizona, a lot of people predict, in that opening round. But again, it's all subjective at this point. Let's actually see, do they get a little bit more favorable draw? Do they get maybe a 14 out of there? Certainly, I think their record is good enough, in the competition that they beat in the last few days is good enough to avoid getting a 16, especially one of the 16 seeds that actually has to be in one of those play-in games coming up in the next 48 and 72 hours, respectively, here. But kudos to Monson and also to Long Beach State for coming to a mutual agreement to allow him to coach through the season with only a few games left in the season, knowing that they had a chance of getting this kind of run in them. The last time we saw a school have this kind of run wearing the same color uniforms as Long Beach State, which is black and gold, was UMBC, when they shocked the entire college sports and sporting world in general by becoming the first 16 seed in the history of the men's tournament to knock off a number one. Now, granted, remember that that they beat an Arizona team that was missing the National Player of the Year at that particular point, or certainly a finalist. But this is where these smaller schools and their conference tournaments, your Horizon Leagues, your Big West Conference, your Colonials, this is where a lot of these are even more entertaining, because every one of these schools in these conferences is gonna get an opportunity to play on an ESPN affiliated network for their conference tournament, or a Fox Sports network, or a CBS network. Now, granted, you can't really find a school anymore that isn't broadcast or has their rights distributed by one of the major streaming services, whether it's CBS Sports Network, whether it's Fox Sports Network, whether it's ESPN Plus. Me, as a former attendee of Cleveland State University, I'm not going to say alumni, respectfully, but also all Cleveland State games are broadcast on ESPN Plus, so I can watch an ESPN Plus CSU game anytime I wanted to. But let me know what you guys think. What do you think of the job that Monson did? Do you think this might potentially cause Long Beach State to readjust their thinking and bring him back, especially if they keep their opening round game respectable? Because the last 3 times that they've been in the tournament, Long Beach State, they've lost by an average of 18 points. Their closest win was in 1990. Their closest margin of defeat was to Illinois back in 1993 when they only lost by 3. So let me know what you guys think. Who do you guys feel should be the number 1 overall seed? Who do you guys have as your 4 number ones? And Mike and I will actually be with you on the Wise Guys tonight at 9 p.m. We're going to actually break down the entire field of 68. We're going to make some opening round predictions. We're going to give a little bit of a forecast for our Final Four, but we're not going to pick our Final Four because we're going to try and go round by round. And we've got a very special announcement for next week's show. So I will see you guys here later on this week. Take care.